Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Strategic Timeout. Today, we are here with to start a bunch of quick previews for each team in the Pakistan Super League Season 9. Lots of changes across all the franchises this season, and we'll be starting the series off by focusing on the Karachi Kings. Karachi obviously did not fare too well last season, finishing in the bottom two yet again, back-to-back seasons. And there's been a lot of change in the backroom staff, to say the least. They have a new head coach. They have Enter Azhar, the brains behind Multan Sultans, who reached the finals 3 seasons in a row. And Heather Azhar was a big part of that. And Karachi Kings have managed to scoop him up, which is going to be a big boost for them. And we're already seeing it in the way that they've constructed their team this time. I have Talha Hayat with me today here. Talha, how are you doing?
Hey, it's great to start these previews, and it's really exciting, and it should be an exciting season ahead of us.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's just like it's I mean it's past midnight for me right now, so I think it's already Friday, so we're almost just 24 hours away at this point. Uh Maybe 30, I would say 30 hours away from the start of the PSL. As we're recording these, they'll be going out pretty quick. Um for a rapid fire सा recording session चलने वाला. So Karachi Kings, यार, Karachi Kings post their victory in 2020 have been a hit and miss franchise pretty much. 2021 was middling season, not too great, not too bad. 2022 was obviously terrible. 9 out of 10 losses. Like that was quite the funny season to for from a neutral perspective. It's like they couldn't buy a win, and then somehow they managed to. The one win they get was against the team जिस जो जाके पूरी टूर्नामेंट जीत के आ गई लाहौर, और उसमें मीर हमजा ने किसी तरह 4-4 ले लिया था. काफी बिजारो लैंड चल रहा था. And last season, once again, I would say Babar got they lost Babar, but I think the kind of trade they got out of it. Um, they did really come out of it with the losing, and you got a Shoaib Malik who pretty much has passed his sell-by date at this point, and you got Haider Ali, who, as talented as he is, was not a platinum level player. तो ना इनकी ट्रेड्स आ रही हैं. इन्होंने बहुत से प्लेयर्स खोए हैं पिछले कुछ सालों में, जो दूसरे फ्रेंचाइजेस में जाके दे रियली मैनेज टू डू रियली वेल. और एक काफी टॉक्सिक कल्चर भी रहा था अराउंड कराची किंग्स. आपको वसीम अकरम के हर सीजन में हिज इंटरफेरेंस वाज क्वाइट शोइंग, एंड देयर वाज लाइक दिस रियली देयर वाज a specific batch of mediocrity who kept getting retained. और इस बार हमने काफी उन प्लेयर्स को जाते हुए देख लिया है. वी सीन लाइक शर्जील खान गो. There's been a bunch like the names जो आपके below average players and who have figured in the Karachi Kings who you won't see in the mix today. There is some good players they've let go as well from the past. Imad Wasim हो गए, Mohammad Amir हो गए. It's like it's really looking like a fresh start, starting from scratch, एक नया canvas. Obviously, there's a few names that stick around, but no one who's been at the franchise for too long at this point. How are you seeing the changes जो Karachi Kings ने इस प्री सीजन में किए हैं?
Yeah, so I think this season can be really described as a season of transitions. Every team has tried to make some kind of change. Some major other, for example, like Zalmi, have not really succeeded in that. And Karachi have let go their two franchise players, Mohammad Amir and Imad Wasim, one through trade and one through releasing Amir. So it's not just a change in the backroom staff, it's also a lot of changes in the squad. Shan Masood is their new captain, and they've tried to take a fresh approach. They've built a new bowling attack, and while the middle order is a little, I'd say, little too cooked, or like too it's a too much of a 2017 middle order rather than a 2024 middle order. But they really have started the rebuild in a promising way, and I think if they continue like this with Haider Azhar, at the helm, I think in the next few years they can become a good franchise finally.
हाँ, and I think obviously कराची का ये है कि as you mentioned, there's been that middle order, right? कि थोड़ा 2017 का middle order लग रहा है with Shoaib Malik, Kyron Pollard. I think Pollard, even though he's past his physical peak, फिर भी वो आपको एक certain output दे सकता है. At least for this season, I wouldn't bank on him to be like a player for next season. I think एक stopgap सा solution के लिए, considering the quality of players available. One thing I really liked was they picked up Louis Deploy in the supplementary, the extra supplementary round जो draft main draft के बाद होता है. And he's someone जो franchise circuit पे पिछले 2 साल से he's someone who's really caught my eye and he's caught the eye of a lot of people. मैं बिल्कुल ही एक वेला इंसान हूँ जो बैठ के दुनिया की हर लीग बैकग्राउंड में ला के रखा होता है while यूनिवर्सिटी वगैरह. अभी तो चलो, अभी वो यूनिवर्सिटी के दिन खत्म हो गए, सो आई डाउट आई हैव दैट मच टाइम टू वर्क. बट ही समवन आई वाज ऑलवेज थिंकिंग कि यार ये बंदा पीएसएल में क्यों नहीं आ रहा है. लाइक he's always available. He's like pretty much just a franchise specialist. So it's good to see him in the mix. And he's a player I think Karachi can really build around अगर उसको मौका मिले. And I think he will get a chance because there are some partial availabilities in there. Pollard की भी, and then yeah. So I think he would get a chance at some point. To kind of, अगर हम लोग थोड़ा देखें कि किस तरह की सिलेक्शंस इस बार हुई हैं, तो लास्ट सीजन से हमें दिख रहा है कि बैटिंग ऑर्डर में pretty much the only players who have been retained are James Vance and Shoaib Malik एंड इरफान खान नियाजी. उसके अलावा अगर हम देखें तो बैटिंग ऑर्डर एक completely revamped सा दिख रहा है हमें. And that really reflects on the type of performances we saw last year from Karachi. Um, if we want to do like a quick, like 2 minute discussion of what what really went wrong last year, what do you think that was? Because for me personally, it was the fact that the kind of trade they got out of Babar. I think अगर आप इतने एक बड़ी commodity को आप trade कर रहे हो, चलो आप वीकेंड his utility in T20s is up for debate, but एज अ ब्रांड वैल्यू जो एक है बाबर की, आपने उसकी ट्रेड के लिए आपको कुछ बहुत ही बड़ा मांगना चाहिए था पेशावर जल्मी से. आई डोंट रियली थिंक कराची गॉट दैट आउट ऑफ दैट ट्रेड. व्हाट डू यू थिंक वाज द मेन फेलियर लास्ट सीजन?
Yeah, they kind of set themselves up for failure by, not getting really the assets that, Babar deserved to be traded for. They got Malik, who's, got probably just one season left in the tank, and he's not like peak Malik anymore. And then they got Heather Ali in Platinum, which, was really a category which he's not, suitable for. This year he was in gold, so that's like more of a, an appropriate downgrade. So they really set themselves up for failure by, not having a solid base to build on in the draft. And then they also had Amir getting injured. They had to bring in Mir Hamza, and their batting order was not really, apart from Imad, was not really in form throughout the season.
Yeah, and I think Matthew Wade भी जिनसे बहुत expectations थे, he also underwhelmed quite a bit. इतनी कोई आपको परफॉर्मेंस, ऑब्वियसली इसकी पोजीशन भी थोड़ी अनस्टेबल थी, कभी ओपन कर रहा था कभी चार कर रहा था, तो there's a lot of confusion across. I think इस बार कराची से वो confusion नहीं broadcast हुआ. It feels like they really know what they're doing, and I think it's a symptom of Heather Azhar joining, because I don't think he's the type of guy जो half एक influence के लिए role लेता है. He's really, because even with the type of recruits you're seeing, it's like it looks like a very hands-on approach. Because there's a few familiar faces in here. Shan Masood aa gaye as a captain, who's worked with him in Multan. Then Karen Pollard is also someone who's worked with him at Multan. Arfat Minhas was someone who was really earmarked by Heather as a long-term player for Multan Sultans, and Multan obviously let him go, and I think they've done really well. He might not figure as much into their plans this year, but mm, like it's a long-term asset they're investing in. Um, so yeah, I think obviously batting पे तो हमने काफी बात की है. They have Vince, they have Sean, I think, who's gonna provide some stability up top. Louis Deploy is someone who's really exciting me. If we look at, and I think Irfan Niazi, who had a I wouldn't say he had a terrible season. Like obviously it wasn't amazing either, but it was his first season and वो emerging player थे और वो नंबर 6 7 पे आ रहे थे, तो that's quite a difficult position for an emerging category player to come in. I think he has had some strong domestic performances, and we can expect him to do better this year.
Yeah, so I talked about like the middle order being, a little too experienced, maybe a little past their prime. But the thing is that, Heather is smart enough to pick, good backups like Duploy or like Jamie Overton. And they retained a Clark, which was a really smart retention because he provides a local wicket keeping option, in case Seifert is not available. So I think they have like a solid team structure. Everyone knows their role, everyone knows where they're going to play. And I think honestly, if I would have to, if I was put on the spot, I would say that they could definitely qualify for the playoffs at least. It's too early to see them as title contenders. I think they'll need a couple more good drafts like this one. But certainly, I think this year will be much of an improvement, on the past few seasons since that win in 2020.
And I think that the Clark retention is quite smart because obviously he's not like some top tier talent जो आप जिसके अराउंड आप एक टीम बिल्ड करें, but he's always proved to be a very good utility player for a lot of franchises. That's why he always keeps getting picked in the PSL because अगर हम देख लें at the end of the day पाकिस्तान में विकेट कीपर्स की काफी एक शॉर्टेज है. अभी थोड़ी वो कवर अप हो रही है with the likes of Hasibullah, Haris coming through the ranks. But until like I think 2 years ago, I would say it was just restricted to Azam Khan and Sarfraz Ahmed if you want to be generous. So yeah, we have I think he's going to be quite useful for them, especially in terms of squad construction. And I think the biggest thing now is कि कराची की टीम एक ऐसी लग रही है where there's actually players, you look at it and you're like, I would actually want this player to be in my team. Until last year, I feel like हम लोग जब भी we do a bunch of mock drafts and whoever ends up getting Karachi is always like हम लोग obviously we try to we allow like a few trades before, right? And it's like जो भी Karachi जिसको मिलता है ना वो बेचारा बैठा होता है कोने में कि भाई मेरे पास कोई ट्रेडेबल एसेट ही नहीं है. No one wants anyone in my team. Like, so I think they've really managed to rectify this. Uh, Imad was the player of the tournament last year. The Not the player of the tournament, sorry, the all-rounder of the tournament. Um, were you surprised that Karachi traded him away, or do you think it was kind of expected कि this is like a very fresh start, तो जितना भी पुराना गार्ड है उनको move on किया जा रहा था.
Yeah, so there were always rumors in past seasons, about trouble in the dressing room, especially regarding Amir, Imad, and Babar. So I think they just wanted to like have a completely clean slate, both in the backroom staff and in the dressing room. They barely retained anyone who was with the franchise long term. There's no one in the squad anymore who was in Karachi since season one. Malik was there in season one, but he opted a few franchises before coming back. So it's like completely new squad. And yeah, they're really focusing on that rebuilding phase. So I'm not completely surprised about that Imad trade, considering these factors.
And yeah, I think it comes down to like a change of culture. Like when you talk about positive team culture, I think Hassan Ali really personifies that. Any dressing room he's ever been in, आपको यही सुनाई देता है कि he's just a treat to be around. He gets the confidence up, which I think is very important for Karachi as a franchise. पिछले 2-3 साल से ऐसा लग रहा था कि पिछले 2 साल से, not 3 से, but like पिछले 2 साल से ऐसा लग रहा था कि there's just no hope around this franchise. Everyone's just kind of going through the motions. But
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
other
like
than that,
even looking at the last season from Hassan, he had like a bit of a high economy rate, but considering that Islamabad played most of their games in Rawalpindi, I think he was still the best pacer in those games, even considering the massive scores on that ground. And yeah, as for the dressing room factor, he's like really the most positive guy you could have in the dressing room, to have a good atmosphere.
yeah, no, and I think if you look at it this way, कि वो एक pitching की भी utility दे देता है middle order, which obviously is quite valuable from a franchise's perspective. And I'm trying to find the numbers from last season for their bowling, and it was तो yeah, कराची का ये main issue था कि if we look at economy wise, power play middle overs दोनों में they were pretty good. I think that came down to probably Amir. Amir had a decentish season last year. Um, Middle overs may they just struggle a little bit with getting wickets though, and that was a big issue for them. But the biggest issue of all was their depth. They had the worst death economy in the league last year, 12.59 की उनकी death economy थी. So I think and that had been an issue for them recent before that as well. उससे पहले वाले सीजन में भी उनको death में बहुत मार पड़ती थी, and then this is something I think this is something I think was definitely on their mind going into the draft this year. And they've had a couple of reinforcements on the bowling sides of things. So you have Daniel Sams, you have Sirajuddin जिनको इन्होंने emerging में pick किया है. And other than that, I guess Jamie Overton, I don't know उसकी availability क्या लग रही है. I think he has some availability issues. Um, and but I think they're pretty well set this year in that department. Obviously, it's still a work in progress. It won't be perfect, but it's better. It's better than what they had last year, and it's something they can build on. Now they have names, Joanna. They might. I don't foresee them going all the way this year, obviously, but I think it's something. एक दो साल में आप देखेंगे कि ये टीम है ना really एक structure आपको दिख रहा है on which they're going to be building the rest of the structure on. Um, coming, I guess, next would be probably what kind of 11 do we think Karachi is going to be setting out with? Um, there's a lot of there's unlike last season, I think the one thing that we already discussed was there is more depth this time around. So they're not really left starving for options, especially on the batting side. Bowling side, I think there's it's still a bit like, pretty straightforward. कि, we know कि they चार पांच bowlers हैं जो इनके हैं best bowlers and they're going to be playing. But I think on the batting side of things, there's a bit more flexibility this time, and that will be needed because availability के काफी issues हैं. Tim Seifert, I think, is not available for the initial phase of the tournament. Kyron Pollard is also unavailable at certain points. Which I've not quite been able to figure out ये कौन से because there's not
I
been
don't
much
think
of an
Pollard is playing anything else right now. He's just like maybe for personal reasons. And also one correction I have to make. I mentioned at the start that Mohammad Amir got injured last season. I think that was the season before that. I'm just like
yeah.
confusing the KK knockout group stage knockout seasons.
That's fine. वो दोनों सीजन ही फारिग थे टीम के तो I understand why you would mix them up. So it was that's all good. But Pollard का यही है कि West Indies themselves are not playing anything. So I guess it's just more of a case of I guess he's been playing 1,000 leagues, so maybe he wants a break. Uh, now, I think, do you have any idea if it's in the first part of the season where he's unavailable, or is it the second, like the latter part?
I think I read somewhere that it's the first few games of the season, so he should be joining Karachi eventually.
Acha, acha, acha. Chalo, I mean, that makes sense. Obviously, we were discussing this before the podcast started, कि PSL is really struggling with this whole availability issue because एक तरफ आपके IL T20 और SA 20 हैं, which are much better paying leagues in the PSL. And on the other end you have the IPL. So जो ये एक महीने का गैप है जहाँ PSL होता है, players are obviously not are more preferring to skip it because a lot of these players do have IPL deals as well, जो आपके top players होते हैं, and they don't want to risk getting injured playing the PSL. So I think this is something the PCB really needs to look at because I think the franchises have made the best out of the situation. Like अगर हम across the board देखें तो this season the squads are a lot more balanced compared to last year where you just had 2 to 3 teams who look really good and then the rest just look absolutely horrible. But I think ये
Yeah,
look ऐसा
ironically, like
नहीं लग रहा.
when you consider the earlier seasons where you used to have more high-profile players taking part, the squads
Hmm.
used to be like very unbalanced, especially the likes of Lahore or Karachi. And this year you don't have that quality of overseas players anymore. But all the squads, maybe apart from Multan and Zulmi to an extent, seem to be like really really balanced and well structured. And
I
also
think
about the
they're
PSL about the PSL window, I think it's bound to get even worse क्योंकि अगले साल चैंपियंस ट्रॉफी भी होस्ट करनी है इसी विंडो में एंड देन रमजान के साथ भी
अगले साल तो आईपीएल से
क्लैश हो
क्लैश हो
जाना
रहा
है.
है. हाँ, अगले साल तो आईपीएल से क्लैश होना है which I don't know how they're going to navigate it. I personally think that they need to look at that September of because देखो आप आईपीएल के फौरन बात नहीं कर सकते हो बिकॉज देन इंग्लिश काउंटी सीजन चल रहा होता है और आपकी मेजोरिटी जो एक सोर्स है फॉरेन प्लेयर्स की इंग्लैंड से ही आती है. एंड आई थिंक अनदर इशू इज हमने ये पिछले साल भी देखा था कि साउथ अफ्रीका से कोई प्लेयर साइन अप नहीं किया था बिकॉज हमारा जो करंट विंडो आ रहा है इट्स ऑलवेज क्लैशिंग विद द साउथ अफ्रीकन डोमेस्टिक सीजन एंड दे डोंट गिव एनओसीज ड्यूरिंग दैट टाइम तो आई थिंक समवेयर बिटवीन सितंबर टू नवंबर दे नीड टू फाइंड अ विंडो
I think
जहाँ पे
either
ये
like
क्लैश ना हो.
the situation is such that you have to choose one league to clash with. कोई मतलब exclusive window IPL के बजाय मतलब कोई apart from IPL no league has an exclusive window anymore. So either you clash with the
Yeah.
CPL in September or with the BBL maybe in November.
Yeah, and I think September, I think November, अगर आप BBL से clash कर भी लो तो I don't think it's a big deal because at the end of the day the BBL is the longer league CSL की comparison से so I think you wouldn't have a hard time attracting too many I don't think you would have like a really hard time attracting players there. uh, I don't know how what the FTP implications of that is because obviously it's usually September से December के बीच में हमारा खुद का home test season हो रहा होता है. But I think you can move stuff around. Obviously, you can stretch the test season to like Jan Feb and kind of work around that. But yeah, this isn't sustainable. This isn't sustainable for the franchises in the long term, I think. Obviously, that was a bit of a sidebar, but I think it was worth addressing because this is something that at the end of the day impacts the way these teams are constructed as well. Um, अगर हम लोग 11 वाइज देखें कराची को, right now what I have down and Talhaf, you can give your preferred, you can give your expected 11. This is not my preferred 11, by the way. This is my expected 11 for Karachi, because obviously there are certain things, just like experience that weigh a bit heavily when the actual people in charge are making these decisions. So I would probably, what I'm expecting to go with is with James Wince and Shan Masood as the openers. Um, Clark, I think, will be the guy starting as wicketkeeper because initial key game scale Tim Seifert available नहीं है. And this allows them with a bit more flexibility to fit a foreign bowler into the mix, which I think they need to do. Then you have Shoaib Malik at number four. Obviously, anyone who knows me, this is not a preferred pick of mine. अगर मैं चाहूँ तो Shoaib Malik um, पूरा का पूरा सीजन बेंच पे बैठा रहे. But I think he still on a more serious note, I think he still offers a bit of utility to any franchise that picks him up, especially with the categories he's in now. I think he's in gold this season. He's not in like the upper categories, which was my biggest issue before this, with him getting picked. Then probably number five pick Aaron Pollard is the guy who would be playing, but initially he isn't available from as per reports. So I think Lewis Deploy would slot in very well. If you were to ask me, Lewis Deploy should be playing most of the games. Um, for Karachi. I think this is someone who they can really build around for the next few seasons. Uh, yeah, he can play anywhere from number three to number five. Perfect kind of player to have for any franchise. And I just can't go stop going on about him. I'm glad he's finally getting that recognition. Um, then I think number six पे आपको probably Mohammad Nawaz दिखेंगे, who's been drafted in as a platinum player for them this time. Long times. He's a player for he was with Quetta Gladiators from season one. So 8 seasons की affiliation के बाद he's finally moved to a new franchise, which I think will be good for him. He needed that change of scenery. He has struggled a bit since the PSL moved to Pakistan, uh, but that came down to not being used smartly enough, which I think won't be an issue at Karachi with Haider Azhar in the mix. Irfan Niazi would probably be their number seven. He's had a pretty good domestic season, uh, and I think he still counts as an emerging pick. Then Daniel Sams at eight, who was one of the top picks for Karachi. Uh, Good left arm bowler, can bat as well. Then you'd have Hassan Ali at nine. Tabriz Shamsi, who's available for the first 6 games, after which he has to go back. I think he would be at number 10 to offer that spin option. And then I think Sirajuddin would also be playing. So I foresee Karachi starting with two emerging players, which is not a common sight for teams. But considering the other options they have I think Mir Hamza and another name that's slipping my mind right now. But I think this is the best
Mohammad Amir
possible.
Khan as well, I think.
Mohammad Amir Khan. So I think either him or Sirajuddin, you could see either one of those guys there lining up. So I think it'll come down to because I think Amir had a really good domestic season as well. I think he had about like 20 wickets. He was among the top wicket takers in the national T20. So it's either going to be him or Sirajuddin who starts. So yeah, Talha, what about you? What do you think they're lining up with?
Yeah, I think the top order is pretty much the same. It's set in stone with Vince, Masood, and Akhlaq to keep wicket at three. And then the middle order, I think Malik is pretty much a sure starter. Pollard will be unavailable, so I hope Duploy gets his chance. And then you can have Nawaz in there. And I think Jamie Overton is also a very good option for the lower order at 6-7. He's a very good hitter down the order and provides a bowling option as well. And you can maybe, if you want to accommodate that extra overseas batter in the middle order, you can drop Niazi and bring in an extra local bowler. They have, the options. You've already named them: Mir Hamza, Amir Khan, and Sirajuddin. And then left arm angle would be provided by Daniel Sams, who can bat a bit as well at number eight. And then Hassan Ali, Tabrez Shamsi, I think are obvious picks. And, if Niazi is benched and you need an emerging bowler, then Sirajuddin is a perfect option. But you can still play him even if Niazi is playing. Last season, I think Multan went with Ehsanullah and Abbas Afridi, both emerging bowlers. So, it's not really unprecedented.
I think yeah, before we wrap this up, we probably have some predictions for Karachi this season. Me personally, I think, and this will tie into the other predictions I make for the while we're reviewing other teams. I think number four this season is going to be a number contested between Quetta and Karachi, who were the two worst performing teams last year, but वो दोनों ने काफी एक refresh किया अपने squads को and both look better. I think Quetta looks slightly better on paper because of that Naseem Shah trade where they got some really good players in, but it's going to be a toss up. I think it comes down to who wins the Karachi and Quetta games is going to be finishing fourth. How about you?
For Quetta, we're not doing the preview, but I think they're top two contenders. I know it's a bold prediction, but I think they'll really turn it around. But
मैं इतनी
Karachi,
उम्मीद
yeah.
रखने वाला भाई.
Yeah, Karachi, I'd say they'll scrape by in the playoffs, but I don't think they're title contenders just yet.
Yeah, I don't think that should be the expectation either, to be honest. Like as a Karachi fan, I think after the kind of squad they had last 2 years, at the way one thing is for sure that there's gonna be some nice cricket on display from them. So at least it'll be like because I think before that it was like hard labor trying to watch a Karachi. I remember like मैं तो Quetta fan हूँ, like watching Karachi versus Quetta was like this battle of mid possible. It's like यार ये मैं क्या देख रहा हूँ मैं अपनी जिंदगी के साथ what have I done in my life to get to a point where I'm watching this this match? Like
Yeah,
कुछ
it's
देखने
like,
लायक ही नहीं हो रहा था.
it was like, Karachi, Wasim Akram and everyone, just froze a pizza in 2020, and then they kept reheating the same pizza and feeding it to their fans for 3 years. It was
Swear to
like
God.
the same thing every season. They retained Sharjeel, Amir Yamin, and so on. So it's really great to see, a fresh start, a brand new
Yeah,
squad with a new
Sharjeel and
core.
Amir Yamin aren't in any teams. I mean, I knock on wood before I continue because like भरोसा नहीं है अब और भी replacement picks आनी है कि कहीं ना कहीं से वापस घुस जाएंगे. But we were talking about before I know we were before we end this we were talking about how the teams look so much more balanced even though they don't have the same like star power from abroad that they had in initial seasons. I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that जो local टैलेंट पूल है ना वो बहुत ज्यादा इम्प्रूव हो गया है एंड दैट्स लाइक अ सिम्टम ऑफ दैट 6 टीम डोमेस्टिक सिस्टम जहाँ पे आपको नेशनल T20 में काफी एक इमर्जेंस देखा ऑफ लाइक टॉप लेवल T20 टैलेंट्स कमिंग थ्रू सो आई थिंक like obviously no disrespect to guys like Amir Yamin they were good utility players but I think the fact that we've managed to move on from that caliber of player really helps. Not saying that they don't have any role, like I'm not trying to disrespect his contributions. He's had some really good seasons in the PSL as well. But this is an overarching point. There's a lot of players who used to make it into the teams who really did not fit the modern mold of a T20 player. Um, and I think it's good. And there was players like Sharjeel who were consistently underperforming but still getting chances because कि वो options ही नहीं थे आपके पास. And I think now that they're not making it, it's good. It's a good sign that हम लोग बेटर टैलेंट भी डेवलप कर रहे हैं अभी. Sorry for that tangent. With that, I'll bring this episode to a close. We expect this one to go out, and I think इसके साथ साथ इस्लामाबाद यूनाइटेड का भी preview जाने वाला है, which we'll be recording right after this. So thank you for listening, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Goodbye.